The first sign came in the stillness of the savannah. A low, uneven moan carried across the golden grass, broken only by the whispering wind. There, lying beneath the shadow of a lone acacia, was a massive lion, his tawny fur dulled with dust, one side of his body heaving with labored breaths. His name was Keanu, and the small, hard lump near his flank told a story of suffering that had gone unnoticed for too long. The man approached cautiously, sensing both the danger and fragility in Keanu's posture. Each careful step stirred the dry grass, and the lion's ears twitched, a subtle warning, yet he did not rise. The afternoon sun cast long lines across his frame, highlighting the slow, rhythmic swell and fall of his chest. The tumor was obvious now, a swelling that seemed to pulse in time with his shallow breaths. Keanu lifted his head weakly, amber eyes glimmering with fatigue, then lowered it again. A faint scent of blood mixed with the musky aroma of his fur. The man knelt at a respectful distance, murmuring softly, "It will help you." He studied the lion's body language. A twitch of the tail, a soft growl, the slight flick of an ear. Every signal mattered. The decision to intervene came quietly. He gathered blankets and water, moving slowly, deliberately, allowing Keanu to sense the calm, measured rhythm of human presence. The lion's growl softened, and eventually he allowed the man to approach closer. The man noted the heat radiating from Keanu's swollen flank and the way he shifted, trying to ease the pressure on the tumor. It was a delicate dance of trust, built from patience and empathy rather than force. By late afternoon, the man had managed to clean the area around the tumor, applying herbal salves to soothe the inflamed skin. Keanu flinched minimally, the soft hiss of discomfort mixed with the quiet acceptance of care. The sun sank lower, turning the horizon to fire and gold, and the savannah seemed to hold its breath. A subtle calm spread between them, a fragile understanding that transcended words. As twilight settled, a change came that none had expected. Keanu, with an effortful stretch, lifted his massive head and turned toward the man, pressing his flank gently against the blankets, a gesture of trust. His eyes, though tired, carried a spark, a glimmer of relief, a quiet acknowledgement of the help he had received. For the first time in weeks, the weight of suffering seemed lighter, shared and eased by human touch. The final moment unfolded like poetry. The man rose, stepping back to let Keanu find his own footing. The lion stood slowly, testing each limb, the tumor still present but less raw, less oppressive. Then, without hurry, he padded into the tall grasses, his figure a silhouette against the deepening purple of the evening sky. The man watched, heart tight with a mixture of awe and serenity, the savannah settling into silence once more. The encounter lingered in his mind long after. The softness of the moment, the quiet gratitude in a creature so majestic, and the fragile bond forged in a few careful hours remained. The world could continue turning, but that day, trust and compassion had rewritten the rules, leaving an imprint neither could forget. A faint whimper drifted over the dusty plains, barely audible over the rustle of dry grass. Keanu, still weak from the tumor, had crawled beneath the sparse shade of a thorny bush, curling his massive frame into itself. His amber eyes were half closed, heavy with pain, and his shallow breaths trembled with effort. The man approached slowly, sensing the fragile rhythm of life beneath Keanu's stillness. Each step was deliberate, careful not to startle him. The lion's fur was matted with dirt and dried blood, the edges of the tumor inflamed and raw. The man knelt, spreading a small cloth on the sun-warmed earth. "It's okay, Keanu," he whispered, his voice soft, almost a breath against the wind. The lion's ears twitched, a quiet acknowledgement, neither aggression nor fear. A thin, mournful exhale slipped from him, and the man felt the weight of helplessness in the still afternoon. He worked carefully, his hands steady despite the heat of the sun pressing down. The scent of Keanu's fur mingled with the earthy smell of the plains, rich and raw. Insects hovered lazily nearby, oblivious to the quiet struggle unfolding. Every small movement mattered, lifting a paw just so, easing the blankets around the swollen flank, applying the cooling balm with care. Keanu shifted slightly, a soft grunt escaping him, and then stillness returned. The man sensed the trust growing, fragile and careful, like morning dew on the grass. Hours passed with slow, deliberate patience. The man stayed close, observing, noting the subtle signs, the twitch of a tail, a flinch, a soft moan. Keanu's golden eyes followed him at times, curiosity flickering through the haze of discomfort. The wind stirred, carrying the distant scent of acacia blooms, and the plains seemed to stretch endlessly, yet in that small patch of shade, time felt contained. Each measured breath between man and lion built an unspoken understanding, an unhurried communion between two worlds. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the rolling grass, the lion's posture began to relax. The man's touch, gentle and steady, had brought a measure of relief. Keanu rolled slightly, stretching each leg carefully, testing his strength. The tumor remained, but the pain eased enough that he could lift his head and watch the horizon. The sky burned in shades of amber and violet, a quiet reminder of the passing day, mirrored in Keanu's attentive eyes. Then came a moment neither had anticipated. A soft nuzzle, the lion pressing his massive head against the man's shoulder. It was brief, hesitant, yet filled with meaning. A gesture of trust, of recognition, a wordless acknowledgement that the small hours of care had mattered. The man froze, sensing the weight of the moment, the fragile connection bridging fear, pain, and hope. As night crept over the plains, Keanu finally rose, each movement slow, deliberate, and unhurried. The tumor, though still present, seemed less oppressive under the balm of care and patience. He took a tentative step toward the open grass, then another, his powerful frame illuminated by the last amber light. The man stood back, heart full, letting Keanu move as he wished. The lion paused, looked back once, and then vanished into the twilight, his silhouette merging with the tall grasses. The man remained kneeling, the wind whispering through the plains, carrying away the remnants of the day's tension. A quiet calm settled over the land, a shared sense of peace and relief lingering in the cool night air. He knew that Keanu would continue to struggle, but the bond formed in those small, patient hours would remain, a memory etched in both lives, unspoken yet enduring. The first sign arrived at dawn, a low, rasping sound that carried across the misty plains. Keanu lay beneath a cluster of shrubs, his flanks swollen, movements hesitant and measured. Each breath trembled with the effort of carrying his burden. The man arrived quietly, careful to tread softly over the dew-laden grass. The morning air smelled of wet earth and the faint tang of wildflowers, a sharp contrast to the lingering scent of the lion's discomfort. The lion's amber eyes flicked open, alert but wary. He shifted slightly, dragging one paw through the dirt, testing his strength. The man crouched at a respectful distance, observing every subtle movement, the tilt of the ears, the flick of a tail, the shallow rise and fall of his chest. "Teddy, we'll take it slow," he murmured. His voice was a soft thread woven into the quiet of morning, enough to soothe without commanding. Careful hands lifted blankets, easing Keanu into a position that reduced pressure on the tumor. The man's fingers traced gently along the inflamed edge, applying a cooling balm made of herbs gathered from the surrounding plains. Keanu flinched, a brief hiss escaping, but did not resist. Each small gesture of care was measured and deliberate. The lion's acceptance was a fragile victory in itself. The plains around them were alive with sound, the rustle of grass under tiny feet, distant bird calls, the faint crunch of insects in the morning light. Yet beneath it all, a tension lingered, a quiet thread of fear and hope intertwined. Keanu moved carefully, each step deliberate, testing the strength of his limbs. The swelling on his flank remained, a stubborn reminder of illness, but relief flickered in his gaze. Time passed in patient rhythm. The man fed Keanu small portions of water and softened meat, letting the lion choose when and how to drink. The trust between them grew, subtle and almost imperceptible, a lowered head here, a soft glance there. The lion's body language spoke volumes, communicating pain, caution, and slowly, reassurance. The man responded with calm, steady movements, a silent partnership forming in the quiet expanse of the savanna. By late morning, a subtle change appeared. Keanu stretched each leg in careful increments, shifting his massive body with newfound energy. The tumor's presence was undeniable, yet he no longer flinched with each motion. The man noticed the faint shimmer in the lion's amber eyes, a spark of recognition, a hint of hope. The savanna, usually harsh and unyielding, seemed to hold its breath in quiet anticipation. Then came the unexpected moment. Keanu, with a slow, deliberate motion, pressed his head against the man's shoulder. The gesture was gentle, unhurried, almost hesitant, yet carried a weight of meaning, trust, gratitude, and fragile companionship. The man remained still, letting the lion's touch convey what words could not. The plains seemed to soften around them, wind stirring the tall grasses as if in quiet applause. As the sun rose higher, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink, Keanu stood fully, testing his strength. Each step was careful but steady, a demonstration of resilience. The man stepped back, giving him space, watching as the lion moved through the open grass, a majestic silhouette against the brightening horizon. Keanu paused, glanced back once, and then continued, the day stretching ahead, filled with possibilities. The man remained rooted in place, heart tight with quiet awe. He knew that Keanu's journey was far from over, yet the bond forged in hours of patient care had transformed their shared world. Trust, fragile and tentative, had blossomed into a connection neither could forget. The plains resumed their rhythm, carrying the scent of wildflowers and the memory of a silent, profound understanding. A sudden shift in the wind carried a faint metallic scent, and Keanu stirred uneasily beneath the scattered acacias. The swelling on his flank was more pronounced now, the tumor taut and glistening under the mid-morning sun. He let out a low, pitiful groan, each breath trembling with effort. The man approached slowly, aware that every step, every movement could either calm or frighten the great lion. The grass beneath his feet was dry and brittle, cracking softly in rhythm with Keanu's shallow breaths. The lion's golden eyes flicked toward him, wary yet searching for reassurance. He lowered himself slightly, pressing against the sparse shade of the nearest tree. The man knelt carefully, placing a hand on the earth between them. "We'll get through this, Keanu," he whispered, voice calm and steady. The lion's ears twitched, the smallest acknowledgement of understanding. The moment was fragile, a balance between fear and trust, pain and hope. He began tending to Keanu's flank, cleaning around the edges of the tumor and applying a soothing herbal paste. The lion flinched once, a hiss escaping his throat, then lay still, allowing the man to continue. Each careful motion was deliberate, a language of patience rather than force. The man observed Keanu's subtle cues, the slight tilt of the head, the tail brushing lightly against the earth, the quiver of a paw, and adjusted his approach accordingly. Around them, the savanna was alive with sound, the distant cry of a hawk, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, the faint hum of insects moving through the tall grasses. The man let these sounds anchor him, keeping his movements calm, measured. Slowly, Keanu shifted, curling slightly closer, his heavy head resting near the man's knee. It was a quiet gesture of acceptance, a fleeting bond formed without words. Hours passed in patient care. The man fed Keanu water and small pieces of meat, letting the lion choose each bite. The swelling had begun to soften under the careful treatment, the lion's body relaxing in the warmth of late morning. The wind carried a faint hint of wildflowers, mingling with the earthy scent of the plains, creating a subtle backdrop to the shared quiet of the moment. Keanu's breathing grew steadier, each inhale and exhale less strained than before. Then came the turning point. Keanu, with effort, rose to his feet, testing each leg carefully. The tumor, still present, seemed less oppressive, its weight shared and eased by the man's gentle care. Slowly, the lion stepped forward, muscles rippling beneath his golden fur. He paused, glanced back with those deep amber eyes, and pressed his massive head gently against the man's shoulder, a gesture of gratitude, trust, and recognition. The plains seemed to exhale, the tall grasses swaying in a rhythm that mirrored the soft, steady rise and fall of Keanu's chest. The man stepped back, letting him move freely, watching as the lion began to explore the open grass with renewed strength. Each movement was careful yet confident, a fragile reclamation of vitality. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows and turning the horizon to shades of gold and rose, painting Keanu's silhouette in quiet majesty. As evening settled over the savanna, Keanu finally found a small pool of shade and lay down with a satisfied sigh. The man remained nearby, silent but present, letting the lion rest. The bond forged in hours of patient attention lingered in the air, unspoken yet undeniable, a memory etched into the land, the wind, and both their lives. Trust had grown from fragility into quiet resilience, leaving a soft, lasting imprint. A soft wind stirred the tall grasses, carrying the distant scent of rain yet to fall. Keanu lay beneath the last rays of the setting sun, his body stretched comfortably, the tumor noticeably reduced though still present. The man approached, careful and deliberate, his footsteps light on the dry earth. Keanu's golden eyes lifted slowly, alert but calm, and in that gaze was something unmistakable, trust. The plains were quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and the faint call of a hawk circling above. The air was rich with the scent of earth, dust, and distant blossoms, a gentle perfume that seemed to wrap around the savanna. The man knelt beside Keanu, letting his presence be known without pressure. "Almost there, Keanu," he whispered softly. The lion exhaled, a low rumble vibrating through his chest, and shifted closer, the movement deliberate, trusting. Over the hours, the lion's movements grew steadier. He tested each step carefully, muscles rippling beneath golden fur, eyes scanning the horizon with renewed awareness. The man watched, hands clasped loosely, ready to intervene but not to impose. Each small stride was a victory, each tentative step a quiet reclaiming of strength. The tumor, though still a shadow of discomfort, no longer dictated the rhythm of Keanu's life. The plains around them seemed to breathe in tandem. Long shadows stretched across the grass, and the wind whispered through the acacias, carrying a cool relief as the sun sank lower. Keanu rose fully, stretching his massive body, claws sinking briefly into the earth. The man stepped back, letting the lion find his own rhythm. For a moment, time held still, their connection, quiet and profound, suspended in the golden haze of evening. Then came the moment that drew every lingering fear into awe. Keanu approached the edge of the small clearing, lifting his head and giving a low, rumbling sound that resonated through the land. Slowly, deliberately, he walked into the open savanna, each step confident, each movement fluid. The man watched, heart full, as Keanu paused, glanced back, and pressed his head briefly against the man's shoulder, a silent gesture of gratitude, trust, and the bond they had forged. The horizon burned with shades of amber and violet, the sky reflected in Keanu's gleaming eyes. He turned and padded into the tall grasses, his powerful frame a silhouette against the dying light. The wind carried his scent, mingling with the earth and wildflowers, leaving an invisible trail of the moment, a memory etched into the plains themselves. The man remained still, breathing slowly, letting the quiet wash over him. Night fell gradually, the first stars appearing overhead, the savanna settling into calm. The lion was gone from view, but his presence lingered in the subtle movements of the grass, the whisper of the wind, and the man's own sense of wonder. The tumor, the struggle, the patient hours of care, they all became part of a story larger than either of them, a soft testament to trust, compassion, and resilience. As the man turned to leave, a final breeze carried the faint echo of a rumble, a quiet goodbye. He walked slowly, the image of Keanu's powerful form fading into the twilight, yet the memory of that bond remained vivid, a quiet triumph he would carry forever. The savanna held its breath for a moment longer, then exhaled, leaving behind the soft, enduring imprint of patience rewarded and trust honored.